Mike. How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
I usually just start up by asking everybody to introduce themselves and, tell us a little bit about your family, and we'll go from there.
So, Mike Benoit. I'm a parent of not just one, two children with autism. We have 4 boys, 22, 18, which is Jamir, and he attends the charter school. 10 years old and 8 years old, Zodi, and he attends the Green School. He was recently diagnosed with autism as an educational disability from developmentally delayed previously.
How old is he now?
He's 8.
He's 8. Okay. And I'm not familiar with that school.
Yeah, it's in Baltimore City. It's a charter school.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Always love to learn about new resources. So, well, you and I met, and your wife, Talisa, and, Andy, Colin's father, we all met 10 years ago, maybe? It's been a long time.
10, 12 years ago. Right.
Yeah, so both, our boys have gone to school with one another pretty much the entire time. They've been to 2 different schools together.
Correct.
And they weren't always in the same class, but often ended up being in the same class, and they still see each other daily if they're not in the same class.
Right.
But they have a really cool little bond, and I love the bond that they have. They really have a cool little friendship going, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, as you know, the podcast is really, it's just something that I feel driven to do. It's therapeutic for me. I love connecting with all the parents, as well as some service providers, throughout the community. But we're in that teenage years, and I know your other one is 8, but sort of the middle autism journey, if you want to put it that way. And I think that there's some folks that are ahead of us that we know in the community, and there's unfortunately a plethora of folks behind us. But I don't think there's a lot of talk or support sort of where we are, and I just felt like there was a need for that. Okay. And I hope just discussing with parents and providers that we can help one another, support one another, because, I know that there were times where I just sat in a parking lot in my car by myself and cried. And I'm sure we have all been there for one reason or another. No one should have to feel that way, right? And so hopefully, I believe what we put out in, love and kindness in the universe will be received and hopefully get to the right people who need it, so they know they're not alone, right? So where would you like to start? Do you want to maybe start with Ja first? How did his journey sort of unfold for you?
So Ja, there were some complications during pregnancy. Nothing that was anything to worry about, because I think we did something called like an amniocentesis or something like that. And it appeared that everything was okay and fine, but they did say that there was a possibility that there may be some type of potential disability based on whatever test that they ran on Ja as far as genetics and the pregnancy. Just something. It was a high probability that that there could be something going on, but it wasn't. I guess the test ruled out Down syndrome and a whole bunch of other things. So they really didn't know, okay, maybe autism. So the pregnancy was normal. His normal birth weight, everything seemed to be healthy. And about maybe 6 months in, he just wasn't thriving the way I think he should have been, but nothing notable enough for pediatricians to say, okay, there's something wrong. And then about maybe 9 months, He wasn't like moving around as he should have. Still, again, nothing notable for the pediatricians. Even sounds, they were saying it's still, there's ranges of things that you would see. And I think we got about a year old, maybe about 14, 15 months. That's when I think we started getting concerned because of just feeding. He just seemed to be delayed. He still wasn't, he was still barely crawling, and he wasn't playing with toys appropriately. He could just flick on things without, repeatedly. And then I think about 18 months, I believe that's when the concern started to arise, because he still wasn't walking. So I think they labeled him as developmental delayed. And then we were looking to just early intervention stuff, just to kind of see what's going on, just do some developmental screenings. And then I think around 2 years old, we started the process of the infants and toddlers, and they, I guess, confirmed developmental delay, and he started receiving speech, occupational therapy, and some minor academic supports, because, during infants and toddlers, they don't give that much academic. And then that kind of translated, progressed to the IFSP. And then when he became school age, right around the IFSP, I think they diagnosed him with autism around 2. I think that was confirmed. And then from there, we just continued the infants and toddlers services and supports. He also went to CARD for additional services every week, in addition to the IFSP that he received. And I think around maybe 3.5, he started Baltimore County schools, and in the specialized program where he had maybe one-on-one support, because he wasn't independent at all. And I guess around that age, usually preschool, there's no preschool in Baltimore County unless you have a disability. So he, I guess, qualified for a specialized program. So he was there for about 3 years. He had zero progress in the specialized program in the elementary school that he was assigned to in Baltimore County. We were in a Perry Hall area, but the program that had the specialized program was outside of the zone school. It was Kearney Elementary. And about almost 3 years of services, from all the assessments from the IFSP and comparing those to all the assessments from Baltimore County. When he phased out of the ISP2 in actual IEP, they determined there was no progress. And at that time, I requested a more restrictive, and the options that they had, I guess, for public specialized programs, I didn't feel were appropriate. So I would say kind of not very aggressively, but definitively challenged any placement other than something that was more specialized for him. And, I kind of could advocate strongly because special education is my background. I was a special educator. I facilitated a process. I ran specialized programs, special ed coordinator. So it was one of those things where, I wasn't trying to use my profession as leverage. I used my knowledge and understanding
Sure.
as the leverage. So they couldn't refute or tell me otherwise. They couldn't prove that they had something that can meet his needs. So my request was private separate day. And, typically, people, they get advocates, they get lawyers. Fortunately, that was my field. And, considered an expert in the field of special education in my roles in Baltimore City Public Schools. So, wherever they wanted to go with it, I felt I was ready to go on in battle, but I was very prepared for any discussions that were contrary to what his overall needs, where I felt like his needs would be met the best. And they didn't disagree. And they provided non-public placement, upon the first request. So he went to Schaefer Center until he aged out. Actually, we retained him 1 year in the same grade. That way he can have an additional year at the Schaefer Center. And after that year, we looked into other non-public schools as a transition, and Trellis School seemed to be the next best place that, I would guess would provide something as commensurate to what he was given at the Schaefer Center.
Mm-hmm.
So we went with Trellis. We did vendor. We looked at other programs. We did our homework, less for me because, again, that was my field. I was actually a representative for one of the local school systems for 5 years that saw kids in the Baltimore City School District in the ManSEF schools. So I was very familiar with what ManSEF had to offer from all disabilities throughout the whole entire state. So I was kind of familiar. I sort of paid attention to service delivery, talked to a lot of people in the city, surrounding counties. I also spent quite a bit of time providing just support for other parents that just needed advice on services.
Mike, your family is just so lucky for your experience because, as you had mentioned, so many people have to hire advocates or a step higher lawyers, which is, I'm sure you've seen it more than I've seen it. I mean, some families, they really go through a doozy of a battle and sometimes even lose their homes. It's so bad trying to get their kid into a proper placement. So thank God for your experience. Was there a difference being on the other side of the table?
Being the one that was approving placements for other families?
Like that initially, and then you needing to get their stamp of approval for JAWS placement.
Right. So from my standpoint, I did it in Baltimore City.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of issues that I had in Baltimore City was there are a lot of parents that felt entitled to receive certain things. They would get advocates and lawyers, and their child wasn't anywhere near a candidate for that level of service. And the local school district could have provided, without a question, the services and supports that the child would need. So they would get advocates and lawyers. They would place their child on their own in some of these non-public schools. And some of these schools would come to the meetings with some very unique ways of trying to say that the child needed the services, and it just wasn't such. So my experience was a little bit more tough. I sort of was a very strong gatekeeper for the district because, the lawyers they tried. I think I was probably not the most preferable person to come into a meeting with because I understand the needs. I know what these non-public schools are doing. I spent 5 years in and out of the schools observing kids, and I spent a lot of time getting kids out of non-public schools and returning them back to the school district because they were there on our dollar for no reason. And they could have just been getting the same amount of services in a public school with their non-disabled peers, where research shows that, it's a better environment for a lot of students.
This is such an interesting twist for me to hear. I've not heard this side of it, that about families feeling entitled and the needs not being so severe, because you and I have kids with complex needs.
Exactly. And, when I hear that a child has a significant emotional disability or a significant learning disability, and we have programs that provide emotional and behavioral support as listed on as needs, people come to meetings saying their kids need non-public, as if we don't already have those supports in place, even down to if it's more academic in nature. If there's anything that I've saw that maybe in a reasonable argument throughout my time, is a school not implementing something the way they were supposed to, that resulted into non-public in those situations. And even then, a lot of those parents and those lawyers and advocates didn't really deserve that level of placement. It's because of the school districts, usually a school district failure to implement something with fidelity. So in those cases, they take advantage of, school districts' failure to implement things as such, based on, staffing and not necessarily in the school district as listed in that individual education plan. It can be provided. But when those supports are not implemented, that's where we see a lot of those privileged parents who have the money and the to get an advocate to take advantage of those situations. They do so instead of saying, okay, you guys are implement it and do it right. Instead, they request a public placement for how much money, how much these placements are.
Yeah, a lot.
So
we're talking like Ivy League level tuition. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, Maryland is not a big state overall when you compare it to the rest of the United States. We definitely have counties that have their reputations, right?
Yep.
I can tell you from being in Carroll County, they really don't have anything to offer.
Right.
Certainly not kids like Colin and Jaw and their peers.
Correct.
But the programs they do have, while I think there's been an improvement over the years, that they're still not up to par. And then you've got, like Howard and Baltimore and Hartford, I think that in Montgomery County, maybe, that present themselves as a little bit of a higher standard. But what I've noticed with them, just by sort of helping other people navigate the IEP process, and I'm doing it as a parent, not in a professional role like you do it in both roles. Your level of understanding and, experience is way bigger than mine. But what I've observed is those counties pushing back on non-public placements.
Right.
It's just so interesting, I think where you are demographically and the battle and the burden of proof, on the parents, and some counties just make it a lot more difficult than others, I guess, is the moral of the story. And it also really, I think, depends on the parents' level of understanding of the IEP process, as well as the laws and the rights and things like that. It's so complicated. But I am glad that you, for lack of better words, sailed through that process with Jaw's placement. I'm sure it didn't feel like a sail through at the time.
No, but I didn't. Because it was 3 years of
having to prove.
Yeah, I'm a wait. Well, not necessarily. I think I understood the process, and I knew I couldn't come back 1 year and say, okay, no progress after 1 year, after all these assessments. So I knew 2 years, okay, all right. And then 3 years, absolutely positively zero progress and no real programmatic things that were really fitting his needs. As far as like communication and sensory, and I can go down the list of things that would be really good for programming. The program that he had at the elementary school didn't meet any of those needs at all. And they didn't present like that was Baltimore County's special classroom for that. And obviously, if that is what they have, they sort of, I knew that they didn't have anything else to provide me after 3 years of zero progress. And that is the program, they sort of had to take a deep look and say, okay. So it was pretty straightforward. A lot of people don't have that experience or that knowledge, or a parent just knows, like, I guess, especially that was in my background, I would just think, okay, he's just going through the motions and this is what we have. And, he's being taken care of. He's coming home. He's happy. He's clean. Like, instead of kind of focusing on, okay, like, what is he learning? Like, like for 3 years, I'm like, in my mind, I was sort of stuck saying, I had to kind of go a little bit deeper into my profession to really understand the next step. So it was really, again, like you were saying, like it is sort of fortunate that is my background, but it sort of led me to like, okay, will my child be able to do nothing at all ever? Because that was the thought right there. If you have 3 years of progress, 3 years with zero progress, nothing to show at all, you either are going to believe that your child can't do anything. And that's all he's going to be able to do is just sit there and flick on things and never be able to speak a word or receptively get any understanding of things that are being put to him. Like there's, the output and input, like there's nothing. So I'm like, no, that's not possible. I know that he is able to learn. I know that he will learn. And I know he's not learning here. And that's the standpoint that parents have to understand. And if they can't understand that and track their child's education performance, even the privileged, the ones that entitled, the ones that have money, they can save a lot of money if they can put those things together on their own. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, but a lot of people can't. I would say the majority of people need help understanding how what educational setting would meet their child's needs. It's a very tough, hard, and complex conversation.
It really is. And I'm going to pull a few of your quotes that you just said because they were really profound. When you said, so my child is never going to learn anything like ever, that is just so profound. It's such a simple statement, but it's so profound. And, when you do get pushback and when you see progress or see that something's not working, it really is that simple. And then you took it to the other side saying, no, that I know that that's not possible. I know he can learn. I know that he will learn. He just needs the proper support. And it might seem like common sense, but it's like this whole sort of process you have to go through. It's, yeah. This conversation is in and of itself so interesting. I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you wanted to focus on, like in particular, like one like really difficult thing within your journey?
Yeah, like right now, the most difficult part that I think people need to really get a hold on is the guardianship. And when a child is moving into post-secondary times in their educational career, that transition portion. But most importantly, just, like what happens next. And a lot of people don't realize by like a certain age, if you don't get guardianship, you don't have any rights to support your child in any way. So you have to do those things correctly. You have to file the correct paperwork. You need to start, like right now, he just turned 18. I know in 3 years when he ages out, of high school at 21, that we need to know, or is he going to go to a day provider to work and do like adult care, like adult daycare, or is he going to be home with me and we'll be the provider and provide supports to our child and figure out how to, service him and meet his needs as he is an adult.
So I think this is such an important topic, and I'm so glad you brought it up. And since Ja is a little bit older and you've done a little bit more legwork because of his age, could you explain to the audience maybe what you've done so far, or what they should be doing before the birth date of 18 so that they don't lose those rights and so on and so forth? Because it is complex and the state doesn't make it easy to figure out. So I'm so glad you want to talk about this.
Yeah, it's the state doesn't make it easy at all. So you have to get, depending on, there's a filing of guardianship, and one, you have to determine who's filing. It's, there's a lot of situations that are different. Parents not together. You have no idea who wants to take the lead on guardianship. Obviously, if you're a couple that's together, then you file it together. And then you have to make sure that this is another thing, we go back to legal counsel. So you may need legal counsel again, or you have to take a lot of time to read the paperwork and to file all the appropriate papers. So you need either like 2 doctor statements of disabilities or a doctor and a nurse practitioner. You need to get his ID before he turns 18. That way you can actually get the ID for the child, because after he turns 18, he has to get it, in which that he can't. And then when you're filing the paperwork, there's always going to be next steps. And again, if you don't understand the different articles that you're supposed to file, then you need to get legal counsel. So of course you can do it privately and get your own lawyer, or you can call the different hotlines that are available. There is free consultation that's available to some parents if they need it, which I highly encourage, because it's very difficult. Like right now, literally, just turned 18. We're literally filing right now for guardianship, which will sort of set up for, I guess, SSI and different things that we would need to continue to care for him.
Do you have any idea how long the process takes? Like when you're first starting?
Actually, I filed the paperwork last week, and the following week, or I guess this week, the paperwork came in to say what additional things you need in order to file to complete the paperwork. So in Baltimore County, it doesn't seem, I thought we were going to wait a long time, but it took only a week for them to send back the additional, the documents, the additional follow-up paperwork of what we need to send them in order to complete the guardianship paperwork.
Okay, so that was pretty quick. And then the ID, obviously, folks would just go to the MVA or
correct,
DMV.
Correct. Make an appointment. You bring, you want to make sure that you have, that you're putting it in, that you are getting an ID for a child that's disabled. You bring the necessary documentation that proves the disability for the child.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you know a lot of this information already because of your profession and your background, but is any of this information relayed at the IEP? Like, I know there's some transitional paperwork, but I don't know exactly what it looks like quite yet.
Right.
My ID is coming up.
Right. So for transition planning, the only thing that is available in IEP is like a transition assessment that you do with the child. And then in turn, they create goals and activities, and they try to determine what agencies the child should be referred to prior to exiting high school. So that's really more for supportive services that they would need after high school. They don't go into guardianship. They don't go into getting IDs. They don't go into exactly what agencies they would actually go into when they leave high school. All that stuff you kind of have to visit on your own when that time comes. But you still have to do like DDA. You still have to do doors if appropriate. For a lot of our kids, they won't do doors unless you need like bridge funding. But if, other than that, you go to DDA and you figure out what the full supports are. And when they provide you the full supports, then that's what gets you the services. That's what helps you determine the level of need that child would need. But again, even with that, you have to still decide what that is. Is that you yourself, just caring for your child and then getting other supports to come in to help you? Or, you go into like a work supported program with mobility and those different type of things. So, that is case by case. That's per person. There's no, it's not like when you get the IP, these are your services, these are your supports, and they have to implement them. When you become an adult, it looks the way that it will be just kind of for that child based, who's caring for him, what the guardianship looks like and the supports look like. It's so many different things.
Mike, have you considered doing a flow chart or a PowerPoint or something?
Yeah, I know it's like all in here, but yeah, a flow chart would be helpful because there are kids that are they're ward of the state and they're in or group home when there are different type of guardianships. There's kids that are home with their parents. There are kids that there's so many. There may be thousands of scenarios based on different child. Like you just never know. Like as they're exiting, it is rare to find a child that is exiting with autism with a high level needs just to leave and will be doing the same thing as somebody else that has a pretty similar profile. It never looks the same because it's about what the parent is going to do and decide for their child when they leave high school. So yeah. it would never be the same.
And then, I have a couple thoughts in my head. One is that you probably I know how busy you and your wife are, but if you can squeeze it in, this would be such an amazing side business for you because you really do understand this. And so many parents need help. A side consultant business. And I'm certain you have no time. But again, if you can put your thoughts in a flow chart and help consult with these parents, even if it's just like an hour or two, just a thought. Because so many people just fumble through it. I mean, initially, it's fumbling through the IFSP and then the IEP, and then it's nothing compared to what we're getting ready to embark on. So
there are a few advantages when you have the autism waiver. For the ones that are fortunate to get it. There are if you're working with a particular agency, they do adult life planning. So you can take advantage of adult life planning and family training if you are working with an agency. So even, I'm gonna give a prime example. We have the autism waiver. We have adult life planning. We have family training. But even working in, we have most of the answers. So for us, we we listen to see what they have, but for the most part, I kind of know where to follow. I kind of know what services, I know what supports. It's just we try to go to them to see if they can give us like a shortcut,
Yeah.
And what we realized, even having those, we already knew, we have to file DDA. We already knew we have to find support services. We already knew we have to file for guardianship. They don't have any shortcuts. They just, they essentially will be just giving you information that you need to do. But they haven't walked us through like, okay, you got to fill out this court paperwork. You have to do this DDA application by this time. They just are giving their resource that's going to give you all the information. You still have to do all the work. But yes, I see your point, like having done all the work, and it would be helpful for somebody that knows how to walk you through each piece instead of somebody just giving you just information. So
the phone calls get so like jumbled up and convoluted, and call this person and call that person, and it's a lot. But are you familiar with Michelle Guyton, Delegate Michelle Guyton in Baltimore County? I don't know if she's your district.
I don't think she's not. The name is not familiar.
Okay. Well, so if you're interested, I should introduce you, because she's a lovely person, but she works so hard for our community, and she's up for re-election this November. It's District 42B. And so it's basically our school district. If only we could vote within our school district, right? She would get a ton of votes there. But in any case, she's the one that secured a law to create the autism coordinator position, the first ever autism coordinator position for the state of Maryland.
Okay.
And then it's right under the governor. And then the state coordinator is Katie. I'm forgetting her name, but under the state coordinator role, there are, I believe, 5 committees under her that she supervises, and they're made up of parents and service providers, and I think physicians, just sort of a nice mix of people who have experience in the autism community. Okay. And they do 2-year appointments. They're, of course, volunteer. They're volunteer appointments, but they do 2 years, and then they open up to other candidates. So like, if you and I weren't as busy as we were, and to be fair, their meetings are quarterly, so it's not that time consuming, right. But like they really need people on there who have a strong understanding and experience of how things work, but also to give feedback within the committees, because, I can't recall all the committee names off the top of my head, but without a doubt, one of them is adult transition and employment, which is kind of where we're headed. Well, we are headed. And I think with everything that you just said, one of the other most challenging things is navigating this whole system. So hopefully the folks that are on that committee might be able to streamline processes. We can only hope. But what they do is they basically, gather information, talk about ways to better create policies and procedures and streamline. They give recommendations to Katie Gandy, that's her name, who then, of course, works directly with Delegate Michelle Guyton. And then just by the normal legislative process, modifying laws or creating new ones, that's how we get our results. So it's so awesome that we have this state coordinator position specifically for autism, because the other agencies that are supposed to be helping really aren't doing anything. The federal agencies that meet quarterly, they're not solving any problems or moving our community forward. So that was a really long-winded explanation, but I'll introduce the two of you just so you know her. I feel like in Maryland, there aren't a ton of adult support programs. Would you agree with that, or do I not know enough yet?
There are
Mm-hmm.
a good amount of adult support programs. It's just a lot of the good ones are full. So
Okay.
a lot of people are not interested in a lot of the other ones. So what you'll learn fairly quickly is that when you're looking for the adult support places after high school, you're going to learn quickly, which is a good place, which is such a good place, just based on just normal research. You have to kind of look into it unless you don't know better and you're just going to just pick whoever's available, which is not really a good idea.
Yeah. So do you have any recommendation for parents in terms of getting started? Is there a good place to point them to kind of start the research and get some support or understanding about how this whole process starts unfolding?
Really around between 18 to 21 is usually when they need to get very serious. The understanding the transition, the child's interest, thinking about the amount of supports that they'll need post-secondary. So doing DDA application, understanding will they need TDA, will they need behavioral support agencies, will they need Division of Rehabilitative Services. Some kids may not need DDA. Some kids may need doors to do travel training, work-based training, different things like that. So it's really about the severity of the child. It's just knowing and understanding the transition planning part of it. Because 13 to 18 is, I would say 13 to 16 is not really that important, but 16 is when things start that's when they really start gearing up and starting to get things a little bit more defined, the needs and the strengths and the weaknesses and the interests of that child. And those things should then translate from identifying them to actually getting them to be involved in the actual activities. So the school plays a very important role in shaping what would look best for the child when they're leaving high school. So whether they have less supports and it's work-based, independent work-based stuff, then you should know that right around the time that they're exiting, whether it's 18 or 21. If it's more supportive, then that's when that child is more than likely leaving at 21, not 18. And in those instances, you should know how much support they need, because there should be some type of career development or community-based instruction and interest surveys and mock work type of activities, if not real work activities within the school, depending on how well they are structuring their vocational opportunities in the schools that they're in. So that's kind of would be like my best recommendation.
Okay.
But
it sounds like what people can do now is get the state ID from the MBA, and then guardianship.
Yep.
Start
guardianship now? Around about 17 and a half. You should want to know exactly everything that you need in order to fill in the paperwork. And it's not as straightforward as it looks, but it looks as if the process for guardianship is a little bit easier if you have an attorney.
Okay. Okay. And we didn't even talk about financial planning. I mean, that's another whole ball game. But I guess if you have an attorney, they can maybe help you with that. I do know a couple dads in the autism community who do financial planning, and I'm hoping that maybe they can come on just to focus on that, because that's another very complex piece.
It is, because you have to file for SSI, because there's a lot of funding that will come directly to the child. In addition to if they are going to be gainfully employed, if they have the ability to be gainfully employed, it looks different. They would more than likely receive less disability funding if they're working and making money, opposed to them needing most of the supports, and the disability funding is going to the parents to take care of them. But you also have to file that too. So that's another filing. And a lot of times when you file that, even though the child qualifies, it appears that they deny it the first time coming around, and you got to appeal it when it's kind of clear cut. So there's no real reason. There's no real understanding of how it could possibly deny. But that's just what happens. And you just got to appeal it and then reiterate, what their needs are again, in order to get funding for the child. So
hold on tight. Thank you for giving us a heads up on that.
Yeah. Unless if you, as far as like income, if your income is on high, then you're probably already receiving SSDI, which kind of like is an easier transition than when somebody that doesn't qualify for that. And then when a child becomes an adult and the child can qualify for it, then you have to make sure, that paperwork is filled out correctly too.
Paperwork. So the other thing I wanted to bring up that I discussed with Delegate Guyton was that within not just the autism community, but the disability community in general, that like we have an 80% unemployment rate, which is so disheartening, and I feel unacceptable. And it's not my area of expertise, but anything I can do to help the community move that forward, I certainly am willing, because our kids deserve to work. They all have skills. They all have strengths. They all have that right to work, that right to be able to do something in exchange for getting paid for it. They should not be excluded because of a disability, and I do think we're so lucky in our school that they're already looking at things like that and starting to prepare them and doing those mock sort of job skills and interview skills that you had mentioned earlier. And in one of my other interviews, I interviewed a young man who is 25. He has autism. And he helped co-found a company an employment company. So it's basically a database that like you and I could sign our kids up on, and they recruit employers and match them with our kids' qualifications. And it's a really cool system. And I think we're seeing little snippets of that. Like I think Howard County Autism Society is doing something. I don't know a ton about it. I think people are starting to focus on it. And then of course the Autism Coordinator Committee is doing some work on it, but we just have such a long way to go. Like the trajectory of issues that we have ahead of us to change and to help support our kids for their life is long, it's steep, I know, 80% unemployment is just, it's not acceptable. And there is a place for everyone. So let's hope that improves in the future. So we're already on an hour. That conversation went really fast. Want to switch over to the lighter side of our podcast, like finding light in our journey, because we've talked about some really intense, heavy duty stuff, right? Not bad, just a lot and intense. All excellent information that I think that, parents will find very, very helpful. I usually just try to wrap up and ask folks just, some sort of lighthearted personal questions so you can inspire some other parents out there. What would you say that your favorite book is? Or maybe not all-time favorite book, but just something off of the top of your head that you highly recommend.
I think I read it in college or not sure. No Future Without Forgiveness, Desmond Tutu.
That sounds amazing. I love the title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what will your dream vacation be?
Africa, going to Africa.
Any particular part?
No, I just want to visit the whole entire from east, north, west Africa. I just want to just see the all that it has to, all that it has. So maybe start off in one area, then go to another area, but probably take a while to, not all in one sitting, obviously, not in one vacation, but definitely want to go maybe to like Kenya, then maybe to like Senegal, maybe South Africa, Ethiopia, Liberia. So it's about 7 different,
7 places you want to hit. That sounds amazing. It's on my list too. It sounds wonderful. And I hope you get there. You will. Just manifest it. You will.
Yeah, definitely going.
Okay. And who inspires you?
That's a loaded question. So I have a very interesting upbringing where I moved around a lot. So I know it sounds weird, but it's not really a person. It's really failure is what inspires me. That's what inspires me most. Just making mistakes. Those are the things that inspire me and drive me. Just, knowing like how to correct things and how to make things right. And, just learning from other people's mistakes and failures. Those are major inspirations for me. I know it's
whatever it is that inspires you. That's a really cool perspective. What do you do for self-care and respite? I know it's far and few between, but what do you try to carve out to take care of yourself?
I would say I like physical activity, like running. So
okay. Are you able to do that? Like, do you get up early in the morning and do it, or?
I would say early. It depends. I have like a little youth track team.
Oh,
cool. So I like, they keep me in shape. I like running with them. So, and that's sort of like I ran track and field in high school and college. So, and I coached for a very long time. So, just running and staying active, those are things that I feel like keeps me, in good shape.
Yeah, nice. Okay, and the last question is, what is your best advice for parents? And I know this is a loaded question, but
advice to parents, like as far as like with their child and with their disability, or
probably just like in terms of navigating this journey.
I would say keep your paperwork in order. Chart things that you have to do. Keep it, keep things at bay. Like, just make sure you don't take things for granted because things could be a little bit more complex than they are. And just, advice would just be find ways to build mental toughness, because some of these things that you think will be pretty easy, straightforward, may not be. You may think that you have support and you may not. So you got to make sure that you build mental toughness, and figure out a way to stay grounded and centered. So that would be my advice, to just stay on top of your paperwork, keep things locked and key, and just keep focused on what you need to do for your child. And if you have to do things on your own, just persevere. If you have help, utilize that help. Don't try to do things alone if you don't have to.
That's all excellent advice. Excellent points. And I just wanted to let you know, you are my second father on the pod so far. And I look forward to talking to so many more dads, because you're going to lend support to so many other fathers out there. And dads bring a whole different perspective to the equation than moms. We're different beings. So I really appreciate you taking the time out and talking to me. And I just love seeing Ja at school. He says hi to me every time with that big smile. And he says hi, but he also types it. Mm-hmm. So it's very cool. Mm-hmm. So you guys are doing an amazing job, and I look forward to continuing this journey together. I'm glad we have one another in our community. So
I agree.
All right, Mike. Well, you have a great evening. Tell the family hi, and thanks again for coming on. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
All right, bye.